Well, welcome back, everyone, to Talking God and Politics with Mark, Mike, and my beautiful wife, Denise. Mark, what's going on? Are you on vacation? What are you doing?
Yeah. We headed down South Alabama to the beach, a little R&R.
Nice.
Kids spring break, so I thought we would. The wife booked something about a month ago, so here we are. It's great, man. I'm going to be off for the rest of the week, so gotta love that.
Well, we won't keep you too long because we don't want you getting in the doghouse, being away from the family on
Yeah,
vacation.
I sent them off to ride go karts. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
That's good play.
yeah,
Good play.
yes.
All right. So tonight we have a few things we want to talk about. Mark, I think there's some overlap between what we want to talk about and what you want to talk about. Why don't you kick us off with you want to just start with Ian Carroll or
Well, so an interesting thing happened today with Trump coming out against Thomas Massie.
yeah, saw that.
He is, when you talk about America First, he's the number one guy for America First. So I'm not really sure why.
Trump is picking the wrong fight.
Yeah,
I
I think
this
this is a huge mistake. So I was looking at X this morning, and Ian Carroll had a good take on it. Let me share, and I can show you.
Did you see Massie's response to Trump?
I did not.
He said he's been primaried twice before. If they want to try and primary him a third time for it, he wasn't afraid.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, he's been in Congress, 12 years now?
Yeah.
He is he is the younger Ron Paul to me anyway. Yeah. I've been following him now for, I guess, about 5 years.
Yeah.
And
I saw someone say something like, well, what is he proposing? What is he proposing that's different than the resolution that's put in front of them? And I said, my first thought was, well, maybe his proposal is just no, and that we just stop funding all of this BS.
Right.
Massie's the only one that's, for the audience, we believe Massie is the only one in our government that knows and understands the problem with AIPAC, which goes back to Rothschild, which goes back to Israel, which sucks in Bibi, and the whole problem in the Middle East and how they've taken over and occupied our government. Massie's the only one that truly understands that. I don't know what his religious beliefs are. To be honest, I don't care. I'd much rather have someone who's not even a Christian and understands that issue than one of these evangelical Zionist cult members.
True.
Because they're more of a problem at this point than just your average Joe that understands who the enemy is and how to stop them. That's why we like Massie.
Yeah. And, actually, Ian, a couple of days ago, had a good take. He started talking to, I think he was on Joe Rogan, maybe. Anyway, I've got the clip where he's talking about the Scofield Bible and how that the Rothschilds, basically what you've been saying for years, but it is interesting to see. I don't think Ian Carroll's a Christian, to kind of see that and talk about it, but I'll share that in a minute. But anyway, he had a take on that. He said, this Chris, I can't even see it. I got to zoom in. Chris Cavita is his campaign manager for this when he last ran. He said, declared war on Massie, by extension, the entire American First base, which he's right. He says that this was his campaign manager. Let me jump over here. I've got one monitor, so it's a little harder to see here. So he says, coming from someone who has been a Trump supporter for, this is from the Patriot Voice, which was shared by Ian, since 2015, going after America First, that basically it's his campaign manager that was giving him this information. And, Trump's a smart guy. I don't understand why he would come out and attack him like that.
I don't know. I've got someone's take. He said, I'm not a fan of Thomas Massie, but I think he's right about voting no on the spending bill. Trump is separating himself from any blame for the government shutdown we're about to have by going after Massie for not supporting the bill. But Massie's vote is irrelevant if the Senate doesn't pass it, and the Dems in the Senate seem to have all the leverage right now.
Yeah.
His position is that it's a psyop and that Trump is using Massie as a way of distancing himself from the shutdown.
Oh, I got you.
But this goes far back with Trump and Massie. Trump has not liked Massie for a very long time. So to me, it's legit. And well, it's because, Trump's a Zionist and Massie is that one guy that will stand up to Trump.
Right.
And that's what we need from time to time.
It is.
And Trump doesn't like that. But like I said, Trump, of course, you're not listening to this, but if you were, you're picking the wrong fight, dude, because you don't know how many of us are on Massie's side when it comes to this Israel stuff. And
oh man, there were thousands of people that kind of rallied around him this morning on X, especially in the libertarian circles I follow. He doesn't realize that the Libertarian Party is part of the reason he got elected. There's so many Gen Xers like us that have, as we've gotten older, leaned towards libertarian, and we finally got off the couch and voted. So yeah, he needs to be careful. Ron Paul had a good take too. The fact is that Massie he's done what he's always done. There was more spending in the CR bill than the government spent last year. So we want to sit here and talk about Doge. We want to talk about government, budgets and cutting the spending, but yet this bill has more spending in it than all of what we spent last year. So it doesn't make sense, but I don't know. I'm still, I'm still behind Trump. He's doing a lot of great things. I just don't understand why he did this. It does make, it's logical to say, what, the government, but I'm fine with the government shutting down. I think a lot of us are fine with the government shutting down. It's happened 4 or 5 times, maybe 6 times in my lifetime. And as an adult, it hasn't affected me at all. In fact, that time it shut down all the national parks.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So is Trump's play that the more we spend, the faster we're going to get to a complete total shutdown of the government? Or do we just go ahead and shut it down? I'm not sure what the purpose is of this, of the spending bill.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't either. And Trump should be okay with shutting the government down. Granted, he's at the head of the government, but he could have spun this as a Democrat thing politically. He could have done all kinds of stuff. Just going after Massie,
it doesn't make sense.
No, I agree. We had some clips from an interview that Tucker did with Jeff Sachs. We've played this before. I think it was his first interview, though, that we had played. Let's talk about this real quick. Hang on a second. Let me pull it up. I can find what I want. Let's see, 8:45 first.
We're doing there in the first Netanyahu's crazy by the International Monetary Fund on Syria. Cohen being part of Syria, Palestine, wants to rule over the Palestinian people, does not want a Palestinian state. And that has led to militant opposition. That's led to Hamas. That's led to Hezbollah. That's led to other groups. Netanyahu's theory is, well, we're never going to allow a Palestinian state, so we have to bring down any government that supports those militant groups against us, because our core aim is greater Israel. That's not much of a worthy cause, by the way. Having a Palestinian state next door and having peace could have saved probably 1 million lives by now over the last 30 years. But that's not Netanyahu's crazy ambition, which is...
What is greater Israel?
Greater Israel means, depending on how crazy the people are, either that Israel controls not only its geographic territory, but that it essentially controls or annexes the West Bank, the Golan Heights, which they've just enlarged, Gaza.
Golan Heights being part of Syria historically.
It was part of Syria. It's claimed by Israel and now with an expanded territory, and East Jerusalem. So everything that was captured in 1967, Netanyahu explicitly said, we're never giving that back. Now, there are two motivations for that. One, Netanyahu says not safe to give it back because he doesn't want to negotiate any kind of peace or any state of Palestine. Then there are religious zealots, I use even stronger terms, who use the book of Joshua, which is 2,700 years ago, that said, well, God gave us everything from the river in Egypt, meaning the Nile, to the Euphrates. And there are zealots in Israel, and they're in the government, who believe, yes, this is God's ordinance. We're going to take whatever we want.
So the Nile to the Euphrates would include what?
Well, if you take the greater view of this, it would include Lebanon, it would include Syria, it would include part of Iraq, it would include part of Egypt, and some of these people actually quote the Bible and say, "We're going to do this," and it's a little sad and absolutely terribly frightening. But I'd say the more narrow vision is what they call from the river to the sea, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean. That's taken as a pro-Palestinian chant, but it's exactly the opposite. It is the greater Israel literal vision of the government of Israel. It's the literal idea. There happen to be 7 million Palestinians there. That's a minor problem. Maybe they can be ethnically cleansed. Maybe they can be thrown out. Maybe they can just be ruled in a military dominant way. Of course, probably well over 100,000 have been killed in the most recent war by Israel. Official count 45,000 of bodies claimed from the rubble, but we know that there are a lot more that have died.
I want to stop it there.
Who is that?
This is Jeffrey Sachs. He's another guy like Massie that has his head screwed on right. And I'm just going to jump one more clip, and then we'll talk about both of these clips. Hang on a second.
I've actually got a picture of the greater Israel.
145.
Yeah. It's almost at the end.
All right about here.
Over our country to scope it out for future attacks. I mean, Iran is presented in the U.S. media as the aggressor, trying to kill Trump, for example.
I don't know if those Fox reporters have the chance to speak with the Iranian senior officials or
that's not allowed.
Middle East officials. I do. I do all the time. I am able to ask questions, to check facts, to understand circumstances. I speak to lots of people engaged all over the Middle East on these questions, and it's simply not true. So the first thing one should do, period, in this world is talk to the other side. And if Donald Trump has that, this would be the farthest reach, but if he has that impulse with Iran too, he will be perhaps amazed, perhaps gratified, but he would do a huge service for the American people. Huge service for the American people.
My sense is that, a war with Iran feels inevitable. I'm obviously opposed to it, but tell us how you think that would go if it happens.
There's nothing inevitable till it happens.
Amen.
So
thank you.
This is extremely important. A war with Iran will be World War III. So that's the point. Iran is not alone, and it will not remain alone.
That's right.
And so if we go to war with Iran, we are expanding the war with Russia. With Russia, we are at a possibility of peace, but we're also at a possibility of nuclear war. They're both very close. And if we go to war with Iran, we make the war, nuclear war, all the more likely.
Do you think that the people pushing us toward war with Iran understand that?
No, I think that they're following a plan, clean break,
The 7 wars.
1996, and a plan, 1991, 7 wars in 5 years, that has been deep set and that has been Netanyahu's baby all the time. Netanyahu, I regard as one of the most delusional and dangerous people on the planet.
Amen.
And he has engaged the United States so far in 6 disastrous wars, and he's aiming to engage us in yet one more. But Netanyahu's track record is just about the worst of any person on the planet right now in terms of damage done. And we should be able to understand that. And we have a lot of rhetoric in this country standing up for Israel. We're not standing up for Israel. We are engaging in war on Israel's behalf all over the Middle East. That's a completely different thing. I believe in Israel's security alongside a state of Palestine, which I know completely to be possible and achievable and peaceful and ending this risk of World War III, and could have prevented the 1 million or so deaths that have come from Netanyahu's wars up until now. And the Arab states have been saying this repeatedly since 2002. It's called the Arab Peace Initiative. Anybody can look it up. They repeat it basically nonstop in the last 2 years. The Iranians want peace. I know that as well. And so the whole game is to make claims about the other side and to say, if you talk to the other side, oh, you're a traitor. That's what they say about Tulsi Gabbard. She talked to Assad. Well, what about that? Isn't that amazing?
But I just to refer back to the core of it, I don't understand when Assad became our enemy and why should I go along with that?
It was almost a flip, because there were nice words said about him by Hillary Clinton one year, and then the next year exactly the opposite. Because these are mind games that are played for reasons that are not said directly.
And that have no bearing on American national security or aren't motivated by a desire to protect the United States. There's nothing to do with that.
Of course not. Nothing that has happened in the Middle East has been for American national security. None of it. Not one of these wars. These have been Netanyahu's wars. Watch him cheerlead.
So it's just amazing how few Americans, many Americans love their country and are willing to lay down their lives for it and have, but how few are willing to say what you've just said?
Because they're told repeatedly the opposite. And you can be told anything can be sold, even not that people believe it, by the way, but they don't hear the correct story anywhere in the mainstream. Mm-hmm. They hear things that don't quite make sense to them. And by the way, this is one of the points of InfoWar. The public didn't believe the official narrative about JFK's assassination. The public didn't believe the official narrative about RFK's assassination. The public didn't believe the official narrative about COVID. The public didn't believe the official narrative about Iraq. The public doesn't believe these things, but it doesn't hear the coherent explanation from the New York Times or MSNBC or CNN or anybody else. No one actually tries to explain. And so what hangs out there is something completely unsatisfactory, but it doesn't have an alternative explanation. And if you don't have the clarity of the alternative, then this miserable, phony InfoWar approach it fills the space.
So basically, he's talking about the propaganda that comes from Israel, who's really running our country. And when we talk about neocons, neocon Republicans, we're talking about Khazarian mafia, really. So that's kind of what he's talking about. He's saying we don't deal with the root problems. The public understands that what they're being told is wrong. They have a discernment that it's propaganda, it's some kind of brainwashing, but they're not told the root causes of where all this is coming from. And that's why, getting back to Massie, he's becoming more and more popular because he doesn't have an AIPAC handler. And we're sick and tired. I'm so sick and tired of listening to Mark Levin and, anti-Semitism. It's so funny to me. Mark Levin goes on Fox every Sunday night, supposed to be this constitutional scholar. He is wanting to defend our freedoms.
Yeah.
But then every time, when it comes down to the First Amendment and freedom of speech, he'll throw the Constitution and burn it to hell because he's all for censoring the public and Christians, criticizing Israel, criticizing the Talmud, criticizing that foreign policy. And when he does that, he undoes everything that he's supposed to be an expert in, and that is the Constitution. And that just
when it comes to war, he throws it out. I mean, he did it during, when Ron Paul campaigned in 2008 and was like, we've got to stop these senseless wars. Of course, he threw Ron Paul under the bus and on his radio show, because I started listening to it when I first got Sirius, or it was XM radio then, and he had a radio show. And as soon as he started attacking Ron Paul, he wants to talk about the Constitution unless it's war in the Middle East. And then it's like, well, that's off the table right now. We've got to deal with this. Right. And he'll throw anybody that stands for the Constitution, right under the bus. He doesn't care. He's a total phony. There's no question about Mark Levin as a phony. He always has been.
Oh, yeah.
Here, let me share real quick. This is what Greater Israel is representing. And if you notice, thankfully, again, for X, because I think people are coming around to this they're understanding that they are being psyoped, that there's this thing going on that they don't really understand. And thankfully, you have a platform that can kind of pull the curtain back just a little bit and say, okay, here's what's really going on. And people are gravitating to that. I mean, you're seeing it through, Ian Carroll and he's just exploded. But there's a little badge on all these soldiers' uniforms. And this is what
there's a map. Notice how the Greater Israel Project pretty much consumes our other allies in the region. Yeah, just a minor detail there.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. That is Greater Israel right there. If everything goes as they want it to.
And folks, you can go, guys, you can go to Jeremiah, you can go to Chronicles, you can go to Joshua, you can read passages where God says through one of his prophets or Joshua that all that God had promised concerning the land promises, and he includes Solomon had peace during, and he gives you the boundaries of the Euphrates and the other river there, or the sea, and he says that all the promises of the land have been fulfilled.
Yeah,
they were fulfilled in the past. Israel's old covenant came to an end in AD 70. When the old covenant came to an end in AD 70, national Israel came to an end. And so Jeff Sachs is sitting there saying, I don't understand this. Benjamin Netanyahu is a crazy narcissist freak who lives in ancient times. And, he doesn't understand the Bible that much, obviously. But this is the problem we're having. We're having these Khazarian, quote unquote, Jews try and resurrect and take over the Old Testament, brainwashing Christians to think it's prophecy. and they're literally getting away with murder of Christians in Syria right now.
Yep.
Muslims kill them. Israel will kill them directly or indirectly. And it all comes back to the Quran. It all comes back to the Talmud. That is what they're supposed to do. And we're just letting them, thinking that it's prophecy and that we're going to get raptured. That's the mindset of these guys that we unfortunately have in our government and the president, unfortunately.
Yeah. I came across, and I'll share the feed from Ian Carroll. He's on, I guess he's on the Hodgkin twins.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, their podcast. Here, I want to share this real quick.
Yeah, I think those twins got anti-Semites of the week or something.
Oh yeah, they did. Man, I love those guys too. They totally played it to the fullest extent. But here is
declaration happened right at that exact same time. Do you guys know about the Scofield Bible? Oh boy, here's a rabbit hole for you. Here's a rabbit hole for all of us. In the early 1900s, right around when the Federal Reserve was founded and the Balfour Declaration happened, right at that exact same time, the Rothschild family hired this dude, this pastor in the Deep South. He made a new version of the Bible called the Scofield Bible. He wrote this new Bible that has all these new interpretations of the text.
Bible.
They didn't
Jewish influence.
Literally, that's where Judeo-Christianity kind of came from. And the idea that Israel is this modern Israel thing is the Israel of the Bible. It came from that Bible. And the Scofield Bible was funded by the Rothschild family. And then it was pushed because they owned the publisher that publishes like all the books. I think it was Oxford Press. They had deals that they could make to get that Bible into all the mega churches across whole denominations of Christianity. And so that was when Christianity got kind of hijacked.
So Ian's figuring it out. He's the more he digs, the more he's seeing. I don't think he's a Christian, but he is putting the pieces together and realizing the Rothschilds are at play here. And honestly, when he started first talking about the whole Israel Mossad thing, I don't know that he really understood the whole Rothschild piece.
Right.
And he's, now putting that together. It's good to see on a show like that, which those guys pull, they have to pull a couple 100,000 people on their podcast, because on YouTube, I mean, there's millions. So,
well, he's even forcing Alex Jones to have to revisit and start talking about Israel and the ties to Epstein and the human trafficking and the children. He's forcing this really up front into the mainstream.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he is. So I guess it was a couple of weeks. The whole Epstein thing has really put him on the map.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had some fringe followers. He had us, and other people like us watching him, but he wasn't really mainstream. And when he put out, when the whole Epstein thing started coming out with Bondi and all of that, it's really kind of thrust him into the forefront, because he's kind of been in the back talking about these things. I mean, he was the first one I ever heard saying, look, you already have the truth of Epstein. You just got to go look at it.
Right.
And I've watched the Netflix documentary and some other things, and they hit around the fray, but they don't get into it like that. And then, of course, he pushed the book, whatever, I forgot the name of it. But and so he was the first one to really say, look, you already know all this. Everything they're going to release is just an affirmation of what we already know. And
right.
You actually get to see the names on the legal documents. But we already know it. And it's now that he's out front, I think normies are finally, going, oh, okay, we need to listen to this guy.
Noticing.
Let me play a Stu Peters video, because what we're going to see is we're seeing a common theme between Ian Carroll, guys like Stu Peters. They're doing a great job, but they don't have the theological background to address the theology, the eschatology of premillennial dispensationalism.
Yeah. And I think Stu Peters got some anger issues too, man.
He does. He's got a little potty mouth going too.
he's got some anger issues.
I told him
he does.
I told him
He does.
we got him from drinking. Well, not us, but other people were like, dude, you got to stop drinking so much when you're doing your podcast. But then I kind of I said, yeah, you might want to throw out a lot of dropping all these F-bombs all the time. You're limiting your audience. And I hate playing these clips with, F this and, but he is right. And they're exposing the evangelical Zionists, but they don't have the answer. I'm like, Stu, put me on your show, please. I'll go over all their proof texts, but he's right. These are the hardest people to convince. So let's listen to what he has to say here. Hang on a second.
Is cool now. As a matter of fact, our voice and our platform has been so incredibly powerful that to try and fail, but to try to combat the soaring threat that we have become in just a short year and a half, platforms like X are throttling our reach. States are betraying the First Amendment by passing anti-Semitism legislation. And albeit uncomfortable to hear, I'll say what nobody else is willing to say. It won't be long before President Trump's administration, the most pro-Zionist, pro-Israel, and anti-American administration to ever exist, starts mass deporting us on boxcars to some frigid labor camp in northern Manitoba after annexing Canada as the 51st state. So yeah, we have to keep our foot on the gas.
Don't know about all that, but
I don't know about all that.
In our path, we mentioned the lawfare, of course. I just mentioned that. These parasitic demons from hell dragging this company's financial dick through the dirt. And of course, other obstacles.
There's that anger.
And adaptive tactics. And then we combat them effectively. But one of those hurdles, one of those obstacles is roughly 24% of Americans that identify as evangelical Christians. I've been talking a lot about this in spaces, especially over at JQ Radio 24/7 on X. I've been talking about how these Christians and these good-hearted people are being led astray every Sunday by these demonic Scofield Bible taught pastors that are teaching them to worship a false idol, the secular homosexual nation state arbitrarily founded in 1948 that calls itself Israel. These pastors like Greg Locke and Mike Montgomery and Jack Hibbs, these televangelists, these pastors come from the gates of hell.
They do.
And when they die, that's exactly where many of them will take up eternal residence. If you take on the responsibility of leading a flock, and if you swear before God that Christians can put their salvation in your hands, you better damn well lead them in the right direction. I don't care what you were taught at your satanic Scofield Bible school. Have some pray for wisdom and clarity. If I can figure it out, you better be able to.
There it is. I love it. Yeah. If I can figure it out, you better. But
he makes a good point. When you have a group of people that you are pastoring, that you're fostering, that you're teaching, you better be teaching the truth. I totally agree with that, man, that you can't mess with that. And he's absolutely right.
You should be held to a higher standard.
That's right.
It's sad because, and he's right, this is the hardest group to persuade because you got to go back to Scofield. This is over 100 years. Mm-hmm. This is a generational problem, multi-generational problem right now, where the cult mentality it's baked into the cake. And these people, they study the Bible, but they study it through this system. And so they truly believe they understand the Bible more than anybody else. And so they don't care what BB's doing. Yeah. They want the Greater Israel Project. They don't care if killing Christians in Syria is involved because they think they're going to get raptured. They want to bring on what they think is Armageddon, even though that's a war that was fulfilled between 67 and 70 AD between the Romans and the apostate Jews. They want this stuff that's not going to happen. And that is a part of the globalist strategy to bring in World War III. Yeah. Nothing's going to happen. That religious void is going to be there, and they're going to try and fill it with transhumanism and technocracy.
Well, and honestly, that's why you're seeing a lot of these churches dying off. And, Church of Christ is one of the biggest that you're seeing dying off, because Christians are walking away from the church, from, their congregations, because of lies like this.
Well, I was listening to Joel, I forget his Webb, maybe. He's a Reformed Baptist guy, partial preterist, but he is dialed in on Israel. I mean, big time. And I'm really liking a lot of his stuff. He's probably the closest to the truth so far. But he's another guy that just has a lot of courage, that is taking on these issues. But here's the problem. Even his partial preterism, he'll tell you that the old covenant ended in AD 70 at one of Christ's coming, right? And therefore, national Israel is not the focus of Bible prophecy. But here's the problem with partial preterism. If you compromise the word of God in any way, and you don't go all the way to the truth, it discredits everything. Because here's the problem. You cannot have the old covenant pass away in AD 70 unless Israel's promises of the second coming, Israel's promises of the resurrection and the arrival of the new heaven and new earth are fulfilled. Jesus said in Matthew 5 that all of the prophets and the law would be fulfilled when heaven and earth passes away, and none of the law, not any of the jots and tittles of the law would pass until it was all fulfilled. Jesus said it would all be fulfilled in Luke 21 verse 20 in his generation. So partial preterism doesn't get rid of Zionist eschatology. Only full preterism does, because we show how all of God's promises that were made to Israel were fulfilled in AD 70 when the old covenant vanished. And that's something that partial preterists have not.
Well, I think a lot of them struggle with that. But like this guy you're talking about, Joel Webb, does he understand that the Jews in Israel are not, descendants?
Interesting you say that. I wanted to kind of probe that with him a little bit. On one of his shows, he has two guys that are on there, on his platform there. And he did say that there was a disagreement among them in how, and it always comes down to Romans 11. All of this always comes down to Romans 11 and how you interpret that. Now, Joel, I think, is smart enough to know that Gary DeMar's exegesis of Romans 11, he's probably smart enough to know James Jordan's exegesis of Romans 11, where they say that all Israel was saved in AD 70. And Jordan goes as far as to say there are no Jews, quote unquote, post AD 70. Mm-hmm. Now, that is absolutely correct. So Joel was saying there's some disagreement between us on the panel,
right?
Basically on Romans 11 and how, and he says there's nuances in how I view, who is a Jew and who's not a Jew post AD 70. I would like to see that fleshed out more on his show, and get into some exegetical issues to prove that. Because if you're going to do that, now you're dealing with the root issues. Mm-hmm. You're able to help Christians understand this, why we shouldn't be considering Jews post AD 70 having some kind of covenant relationship with God that's somehow connected with a modern, geographical land and all that stuff. So
that's going to be the hardest one, because like you said, we've got 100 years of lies and traditions and just these baked in things that these pastors, these ministers have been teaching for 100 years.
And Trump is surrounded by all of them. Yeah. He's got Paula White, the apostle, the pastor, the prophetess, who babbles around thinking she's speaking in tongues and has visions and revelations from God.
Oh,
it's just gonna be pretty soon. She's gonna have a vision that God's telling her to tell President Trump to go to war with Iran.
Yeah.
I feel it. I see it. It's a train wreck waiting to happen. Mm. Only God can intervene and stop this train wreck from happening at this point. I just have to rest in the sovereignty of God and just how he's going to chasten the church.
Right.
Backslidden.
there's just, I can't imagine her, you know, and she's kind of disappeared out of the news recently. I was kind of hoping she'd go away. That there's just no way that this is going to happen. I just cannot believe we're going to go to war with Iran. I think these things are God's going to settle this with clear heads, with platforms like this, with people like us talking about this, and people that are listening, sharing this information. You know, in fact, on Sunday, I was in class and they were talking about pornography. And man, it was right towards the end. I told the guy teaching, I said, well, next week I've got a shocker for you. I said, go look. I said, just spend this week, go look at who owns Pornhub. Go look, because then he talked about how Hollywood is really into, you know, pushing pornography. And I said, well, go look who's running Hollywood. Go look who's running the music industry, and go look, just go look at who owns Pornhub. And a lot of these pornographic, these businesses. I mean, it's a rabbi that owns it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, hang on a second, Mark. I'm going to jump in and push back just a little bit. You said there's no way God's going to allow this to a certain extent, but I was just reading for my daily reading, I think it was out of Numbers, where Israel's complaining. She wants to go back to Egypt. She doesn't like the manna. She doesn't like what God is doing for her. And God decides he's going to chasten her by giving her meat, by quail. But he says, hey, you're going to eat it all. You're going to eat it all, not for a day, not a week, not a couple weeks. I think it was a whole month. You're going to eat this for an entire month until you puke it out of your nostrils and your mouth. You're going to be so disgusted with. In other words, God chastens us by giving us what we want that he knows is sinful, and that he knows that we know is sinful. So if the church wants to turn its back on God's word, dispensational Zionism, and you want to make idols, and that's what you've done by following this red heifer crap and paying money for a temple.
Oh, we got a blood moon coming up too.
I'm on a roll. And having a theology that says Gentiles are going to be circumcised in your millennium, and they're going to offer up sacrifices. That is an idol. Paul says that's another gospel in Galatians. So if the church is going so hardcore after that, Mark, don't be surprised that God chastens them by giving them what they want. Now, if it doesn't happen, it is by mere grace and mercy, because there's a tiny remnant, hopefully,
well, I was going to say
that don't want that.
That's right.
So, but he has a way of kind of dealing with everybody, so he can preserve his elect and protect them at the same time, dealing with some of these other folks. So it's just going to be interesting to see what God does, because all we can do with the little platform that we have is just be faithful in the little things and teach, and but God he's gonna step in and deal with this.
Yeah, something's going to happen. It's going to be either way. It's going to be interesting. I'm not worried, but I always want to look at on the good side and say,
I know. Well,
because of the remnant, he's not going to do it.
Well, the good side is, I shouldn't say God is going to step in. He's already stepping in. The hearts of the kings are in his hand. He's directing them as we speak, right? But the comfort that I have is, I think it's a proverb that says, the deceiver, or the deceived and the deceiver, both belong to the Lord.
That's right.
So I'm getting all mad at all these people that are deceiving the church and politically deceiving and lying. And God just saying, Mike, I've got it under control. I'm even controlling those guys. They think that they're in control. I'm working this all out for your good and for my glory. And that's the positive. If you want to end on a positive, that's where we have to rest.
Yep, I agree. Yep. Let's see.
Hang on a second, Mark.
Anything else? Yeah, you got something else?
Yeah, she does. She has a couple of things she wanted to talk about.
Great.
No, we've already covered what we were going to talk about. We can talk about Alex Jones and his reporter
Ah,
that was
yeah.
killed,
Yes.
that was murdered. Yeah, but I think that what I go to, because I'm really not very afraid of what's going to happen politically with our country. I mean, there's some discomfort, but ultimately God is sovereign, God is in control. And when it comes to all of this, because what they want is a one world government, right? We all know that. It's just the modern day Tower of Babel, and we all know how that's going to end. So, you know, God will do things in his way, in his time. I'm hopeful, but I'm also very realistic about the direction that I see things going in. But because God is in control and he's sovereign and I'm a child of his, I rest in that comfort. So,
and look, it could get bad for a little while.
Sure.
I'm not saying that at all. I just don't see like nuclear war, nuclear holocaust, all of that stuff. I don't even really.
There's definitely not going to be an end of the world, and
No.
you know, like
some
you guys talk about that. That is not going to happen because Scripture says it's not going to happen, and you know, so I have a lot of comfort in that. God's always going to preserve his church.
But
So.
I do wonder about these evangelical Zionists who live in this comfort of being in the United States, who have been sheltered and shielded from any of the reprisal that the Christians in other parts of the world have suffered, and wonder if that were to come to our doorstep and we were to experience that, would they still hold to the same Zionist idolatry that they hold to right now? I do wonder. I wonder about that.
Well, and you see a lot of these pastors that are still supporting Ukraine from the standpoint of there's Christians there suffering, but they don't make the connection that Zelensky's the reason they're suffering.
Right.
Tucker actually had a guy on. He's a Jewish lawyer that is representing the Orthodox Church in Ukraine. He did the interview with this guy 2 weeks ago. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. It is great. This guy is just breaking down, look, here's what's going on in Ukraine. He's shutting down every single church except the one that they put in place. And they're basically closing the churches and taking them over. And this lawyer is saying you can't do that. And he's representing these churches in the courts. And he's not being very successful. But these are Orthodox churches that, yes, were part of the Orthodox Church in Russia, but they have over the years kind of separated. But that, you know, Zelensky looks at them as they have ties to Russia, so he's looking to shut them down. I mean, they're being beaten, they're being taken to prison, killed.
Yeah.
And these pastors just it's this visceral, you know, they want to feel good. They want to say something that makes them feel good with no logic.
Yeah.
Mark, they're narcissists.
Yeah.
It's a cult filled with narcissism.
That's true.
Horrible eschatology.
That's true.
Horrible theology.
They want to,
horrible understanding of the nature of God, the Bible, everything, but it's all narcissism. They don't care if Christians are killed in Syria, if it's going to advance something good for them.
That's right.
Or what they think is good for them. And they're going to use Bibi because they don't care. Bibi has been told he has some prophecy on him, some rabbi gave him, that he's supposed to take all this land that he's taken, the Greater Israel Project, that he lies through his teeth, that he's saying he's supporting when it's on their patches of their soldiers. He's such a lying sack of crap. Anyway, he's been told that he is going to give the rule over to the Messiah. He's going to be the last prime minister. Christians are all excited about this and their red heifer and the rebuilt temple. And they don't care because they think, well, Bibi thinks he's going to bring in Messiah, but really Bibi's just going to bring in the Antichrist and the man of sin. Right. By the way, alive when Paul wrote. That's just a minor detail.
Right.
But all of this fictitious prophetic nonsense that's going on with Bibi and the evangelicals, and it's the perfect storm. It really is. And it's kind of cool to see when you understand the sovereignty of God. I mean, it's like it can't get any worse. And you're thinking, but God. I always see that but God in scripture. But God rules the heavens and the earth and all the men and women and their decisions. And okay, God, yeah, you're right. You got it under control. But
yeah. Denise, what else you got?
Well, I was just thinking about a clip that I saw with Tucker Carlson, actually Chris Cuomo, where Tucker Carlson is discussing with Chris Cuomo that there is one senator, GOP senator, that was put in place and is specifically there to stop, is it the JFK files or the Epstein files from coming out? And that senator is Tom Cotton.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's terrible, from Arkansas, man. Oh, I can't believe the Arkansas.
I used to like that guy until I found out what a Zionist shill he is.
Yeah.
The guy's evil now.
So
he's a neocon. He's
Trump
loves war.
Trump loves Cotton. And it's just so sad to see Trump surrounded by such bad people. Theology. I mean, the guy's great as far as conservatism. He's very eloquent. He's got, good standards. I'm not saying that he's a bad guy. Like I said, I used to like Cotton until I understood what his eschatology is. And this is the number one issue of our generation. Hands down, Israel and the Greater Israel Project and how we as a nation respond to it. That is the issue of our generation.
Absolutely.
And I try so hard to be patient with my own, especially adult children who are now 18 up to almost 26, and just presenting them this and letting them absorb it little by little and take it in little by little, because it is their voice going forward that is going to have to continue to push this cause and going to have to continue to teach the truth. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you had mentioned a little bit ago the Jamie White, the journalist for InfoWars that was murdered. Alex put this out a little while ago. He said, breaking, Elon Musk was on the same Ukrainian enemy target list as the murdered InfoWars journalist Jamie White. Let me share this.
Wow. I didn't know that. Well, yeah, and they're really going after Musk. I mean, they're burning all his tests. I mean, and Alex did bring up, he thinks that this is going back to Obama, that Obama he developed some kind of kill switch for the internet. And I don't know what that entails. I don't even know what that really means.
Yeah.
But that's their kind of last ditch effort, when they're cornered, which they are cornered.
Yeah, they are.
Because we're winning. And so they're doing the George Soros thing again, where they're, doing violence and blowing up crap and burning stuff.
Here, let's, and I didn't even know this transgender spokeswoman. I didn't even know this. This is just crazy.
So InfoWars is on the list, and Alex Jones. These are the people targeted. And right here, Jamie White. And the statements he made exposing Soros, the CIA, USAID, and all of them. Who else is on the list? Elon Musk is on a Ukrainian government enemies violence hit list with the American that ran their information service, the fat man in a wig. Pull him up. I forget his name. Saying, "Oh, we're going to come after you in America. We're going to come after you in your country." That's him.
We shouldn't be making
Sasha
any deals
Ashton,
with them until that
Cirillo.
On.
Exactly.
And there's videos of this dude who was running the enemies list for the government on national TV in Ukraine.
Oh, wow.
Saying, we're coming for Senator Josh Hawley. We're coming for Jack Posobiec. There was a criminal investigation opened on this psychotic for threats to a U.S. senator. When you're on a hit list and the person that's the spokesperson for it says, we're going to get you, Senator Hawley. We're going to get you, Elon Musk. We're going to get you, Jack Posobiec. We're going to get you, Alex Jones. And then your reporter leaves and gets shot through the neck.
Mm.
Oh.
I want a federal investigation of it. But regardless, have you even heard Elon talk about being on this list? I bet he doesn't even know. And I know inside baseball that there have been a bunch of people coming to town recently trying to get him. Nobody knows that.
So, yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Well, I think
Crazy stuff.
Elon was reporting when X went down that they traced IP addresses to Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, those DDoS attacks or DDO attacks. Anyway, yeah, they just flood the servers with bots and it crashes. It was down for 2 hours.
Does Trump even make the connection that Ukraine is just like another Israel? Like that's another thing. It's just like, and why are we making a deal with this little shit if he has, and it's official government, that he has a hit list of our people? I'd say no deal, dude.
No
in
deal.
fact, we're coming in to get our minerals because we want our money back that you stole.
Right.
And you're getting rid of this list, or we're going to put you on a list. I mean, that's how you deal with that. That's crazy.
Crazy. It is. It's crazy. And I mean, look, it just shows you Ukraine, when it broke off from the Soviet Union, when the Soviet Union crumbled in the early 90s, it was the most corrupt nation in Europe, and it still is. Mm-hmm. The fact that we've given them $350 billion is a joke. I mean, the American people, if we're this Christian nation, which we're not, but at least Christians need to see that. And I was talking to my wife actually this morning. We were sitting out on the porch, and I used to get angry. I'm like, people are just stupid. I just call them stupid. They're not. They listen to the legacy media. They read the legacy newspapers, and they buy whatever they're sold. Mm-hmm. They don't question. And it's not that they're stupid. It's like it's that they just they put their faith in this.
You can have very intelligent people defending a paradigm that's wrong, right? It's just like you can have someone in natural medicine, phytotherapy, herbology, a totally different paradigm than the Rockefeller paradigm of medicine. But yet you have very intelligent people in the Rockefeller, but their paradigm is wrong. Their worldview and philosophy of what actual medicine is completely wrong. So you're right. You can have very intelligent people that are brainwashed. And when we're talking about evangelical Zionism, you can talk to some of these guys and they'll quote scripture all over the place, but they're defending a system and a paradigm that is such a lie and so wrong that they can't see the forest for the tree.
And then
and that's why I love. Sorry, Denise, go ahead. What?
I was going to say, then you have to be able to put together how infiltrated our education system is, because our education system has been designed to create robots that simply go out into the workforce to do what they're told and never question.
Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah. I was going to say it's public education, the government school education, and this legacy media. Thankfully, it kind of morphed, the conversation this morning morphed into, well, thankfully our kids, our younger kids, that generation, and even the generation before that, they don't watch TV. They don't listen to any of that. So hopefully through platforms like this and the internet being a way of getting to the truth, that a lot of this stuff's going to go away. Now, I know the deep state will always figure out a way to manipulate and push their narratives, but hopefully we're reaching a time where I'm not going to buy this. I need to go investigate, because I've always been that way. Most people don't. They don't question.
This is a red pill with Israel. I think we're gaining and gaining, just like COVID. Right? People are like, this is wrong. What's really going on? Yeah. And with Candace Owens, Ian Carroll, Stu Peters, the Hodgkin twins. It's just snowballing, and that's what we but we've got to have the theology. We have to have a proper eschatology to reach these people, because at least they're not going to be convinced of anything unless you can prove it from the Bible.
Right.
And that's where Stu Peters falls short. That's where these other guys fall short.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that is the biggest paradigm that needs shifting is the Christian mindset of Israel. Once that shifts, once they begin to see that these lies, that they're not God's chosen people, that this is a government, it's an entity run by as evil of people as the government of the United States, and then they'll begin to say, okay, what is the truth? Because
Mark, if they hadn't brainwashed Americans, evangelical Zionists, they would be nothing. They wouldn't have our support, and they'd be nuked. They'd be overrun by Muslims, and that would probably be a fairly good thing, because all they say is, oh, see, God's on our side. We win all these battles. No, you win all your battles because you're stealing from the American people for us to pay for your crap wars. It's not that God is, on your side because you're winning wars. You're stealing our money, man. And you're using our blood and our treasure. And that's what needs to stop. Because if that stopped, there'd be nothing left to Israel. And to me, that would be a good thing, because people would start rethinking their eschatology, I hope, or they would begin kicking the can down the road even more and not understanding what soon and this generation means.
Slowly but surely.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've reached an hour, baby. You got any closing comments?
Nope. We're good.
Mark?
No. You guys have a good week. I'm going to finish it out here at the beach, and a little warmer, not totally. The water's cold. You don't want to get in it, but
Mark, now that I've wound you up as best I can, I'm going to let you loose to your family.
Yeah.
That's what I like about you. You're so calm. You and my wife both. I get just riled up this stuff. I'm like a bully kind of shop. That's why I like Stu Peters.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a little bit of anger left in there. I'm just trying to keep it at bay for the people watching.
There you go. Well, you have an enjoyable time on your vacation.
Well, thank you.
You tell them we said hi.
We'll do it.
All
Good
right.
to see you guys.
Take care.
All right. Bye.